everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences.
Get on with it.
Well, here's a new hotness one for you. After Us, at the Games Expo, the UK Games Expo I mean, this was a particularly big hit, mainly just because there weren't that many copies of it. There was barely any being sold. I got the last copy on the Monday and I knew pretty much nothing about how the game played other than what was told to me at the press preview. I just figured, grab a copy and try it because I'm sure people are going to want to know about this one. Illustrated by Vincent Dutrait, this is a card game where you're essentially placing cards in a row to link up little bonuses, get resources, buy better cards, and eventually race to 80 points. That's what the general aim of the game is. But I figured for a 45-minute game on the box with Vincent Dutrait's gorgeous artwork, I thought, you know what, this could be a nice one for me to try. Question is, was it worth me standing in line for it, or is this just one of these games that might have been hyped up a little bit too much? We shall see. So, After Us, big card game. Not that too many rules. I mean, the rule book is bigger than it needs to be, but they put in a lot of pictorial examples and it's very easy to play. You should be in no trouble getting the rules down from this book. It is a very simple game rules-wise, but there's a bit more depth than you might think. Essentially what happens is that everybody starts off with a bunch of starter cards which represent, like, a type of monkey. Whatever, there is no theme in this game. It's got that whole Planet of the Apes style thing where like the world's gone to pot and apes have now taken over, but whatever, it's a card game, there is no theme here. But everybody starts off with a bunch of starter monkey cards, and these cards have all got like little frames and boxes that contain little bonuses, and it's just basically an engine builder. So there's some generic resources that you can gain, but then there's also spend X to get Y, spend X resource to get Y resource, spend this to get whatever victory points, and various things like that. But the idea is what happens is that you essentially have your starting deck of 8 or so. Let's move this out of the way for a minute. And so you draw 4 cards at the start of a round and decide, how am I going to arrange these in front of me? So I could have them in this formation here, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to link up the boxes that are on these cards. So as soon as you create a closed frame, you get whatever is inside that box, and if it's an open frame, you don't. So you have to decide, well, that's not bad, but hang on, what if I put this one here? Maybe that one's better there. That's not too bad. You know what? I'm kind of cool with that. We'll go with it. And so you then gain everything that's on the cards. Once that happens, you then have a phase where you can potentially buy more cards, where each player has 4 of these little tokens that give you a special bonus, but also dictate what type of monkey card you can buy. And so with these ones, you essentially simultaneously go, okay, and flip. And whichever one you do, you get the bonus. You can copy a neighbour's bonus if you want for resources, but mainly it allows you to buy more monkey cards. And there's quite a decent amount of them, but basically they come in 4 types. You've got the orangutans, you've got the mandrills, I think that's what they're called, you've got the chimpanzees, and you've got the gorillas. Each one gives you frames and cards similar to these, but more and more powerful with level 1 and level 2 cards, but they just sort of tailor to a particular type of thing in the game. Like the orangutans are better at getting you batteries, which is a type of resource. The chimpanzees let you repeat powers, the gorillas let you trash cards out of your deck with a rage mechanic. It's, just little tweaks like that. But you can decide whatever it is you want to buy based on the token you flip. And then you just rinse and repeat. You put those cards to the side, anything that you buy goes on top of your deck, you draw 4 more cards and decide, okay, right, what am I going to do with these? I'll put them in this order. And of course, you carry on, build up an engine until you get to 80 points. Monkey! So let's get the elephant out of the room now, because people have been giving me so much shtick for this on previous reviews. And I'm going to stay with it. I'm sorry, this is just the way I believe. This is a game that quotes 1 to 6 players on the box. And you can see where I'm going with this now. This game is 99.9% multiplayer solitaire. And if you were getting on my case with things like Planet Unknown and stuff like that, this one is worse than that. There pretty much is no reason to have other players in this game. The only bit of multiplayer interaction that there is, and I mean only this, is that when players are flipping these simultaneous tokens, you flip them over at the same time, and then the neighbour, you can buy the bonus for 2 resources. That's it. Oh, you flipped over a 2 victory point bonus. Yeah, I'll spend 2 resources for that. That's fine. That's it. That is it. Nobody's stealing your cards because they all come from a face down deck, so you don't know what you're getting. You can't influence anybody else's displays. The only thing that is happening is that you are racing each other to 80 points. That's it. If anybody tries to tell you that this is an interactive Euro, they are lying through their back gorilla teeth.
His name is Donkey. Monkeys aren't donkeys. Quit messing with my head.
And this says it will go up to 6 players. Be wary of doing that. Remember, you're only as fast as your lowest common denominator. If you play this with a lot of players, oh my god, can the AP generation in this game be hell? Because this game is just basically prone to AP. And I can usually be quite quick with my formations here, whether that means I'm not playing the game as optimally as I should, but I've won more than I've lost. But the thing is that you can get in a situation where somebody just freezes up with the 4 cards they've got because they have to look at what they're doing and then they've got, oh, hang on, but maybe I want to do that, I'm not sure. And they're there for ages. And then to resolve them all, it's a bit like doing the powers in Earth. You've got a lot of these different things triggering, and if anyone's slow doing that, they're going to hold the game up. It does drag on horrendously when you go above 3 players. 4 absolute max I would play this with. You will not pay me to play this with 5 or 6 again. The whole 5-6 player thing is totally tacked on with this game to try and just sell it to more people. There's no reason to play this with 6 players. And I mean, you can defend things like, say, Planet Unknown until the cows come home, fine, fair enough, but you cannot defend this for playing it with 6 players. It just doesn't work.
I can explain if you would just give me a moment. No, you can't. Don't even try.
So that blemish aside, is the gameplay still fun? Well, half of it is, and half of it just is a means to an end. The whole thing of flipping the tokens to decide which monkeys you're buying and which bonus you get is kind of minor. It doesn't really amount to much. You can usually buy whatever bonus you want off neighbours, and mainly it's just a case of, well, I have these particular resources, so I'll probably go and buy this monkey because not buying cards is pretty detrimental to your ability to do well in the late game. So the first phase is where it's at, and that's kind of this whole game, really. You have to be into this whole putting the 4 cards in a sequence and lining up the bonuses, which is enjoyable, don't get me wrong. But that's the whole game. If this bit doesn't appeal to you, there's nothing else in this game to appeal to you, because it is all about this. And when you're buying the cards, you're buying them from a face-down deck, so it's not like you actually get to choose which ones you get. So these bonuses are going to be randomized, they're going to be just on whatever card you pick up, and you have to make the best of what there is. Now granted, I'm kind of glad that's the case, because otherwise you'd have people APing over which cards to get as to whether they would fit frame-wise. But it does mean that you are just essentially grabbing more cards and doing this for display thing, and that's it. Now, the game does take a relatively short time though. You are talking about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour if you play this with, as I said, the 3 or less player thing. When you start adding players and getting to the 5-6 player mark, this thing will drag beyond that time, guaranteed, and it's just not worth it at that point, because it is very rinse repeat, even when the game is only going to about an hour. Because that's what the turn is. It's, right, I've got these 4, generate the resources, which is quite fiddly because you have to constantly, right, let me grab a bunch of these, grab a bunch of these, grab a bunch of these, all while 4 or 5 other players are doing this, so hands are grabbing all over the place. Once you're done, you then rinse repeat. And again, and again, and again, ad nauseum, and it's very slow to build up. It snowballs a little bit, so you've got a very slow point progression, and then slowly but surely, quickly, people start getting more points per turn. But it's just, I don't know, it goes on just that little bit longer than I would like for something that is basically so rinse repeat.
Monkey!
Now you can play this solo mode, but the solo mode feels like it was tacked on, because the solo mode literally comes on a separate sheet like this, and you wonder, well, why wasn't it in the rulebook? Usually that's because the solo mode was an afterthought. Now, I don't know what the case is with this game, but I usually get a little bit wary when I see solo modes are, not printed in the main rulebook, at the back. But the solo mode basically has you playing against an AI opponent where they have their own board, you flip over their cards and they generate points literally just based on what level the ape is, and they get resources and they buy cards based on a particular kind of like priority system that they have. It's not particularly complicated, but it is quite fiddly to pilot, because you're constantly having to, right, flip over your deck, sort out how many points you've got first, right, and then I need to give you this many resources, and then based on this I need to give you more resources, right, then follow the priority chart, you get to do this, and you're kind of doing a lot of piloting for this AI, and you almost feel like you're doing more for the AI than you are yourself. I've done my 4 cards, got my stuff, great. And then you gotta sit down and do stuff with the AI, and it's like, no, the AI needs to be a little bit quicker than that. But the main problem I have with the solo mode is that I don't know whether it could just be me. Could just be me. I will gladly, go by that assumption. But this feels nigh on impossible to win. This mode is hard. You have to race it to 80 points. And so it's going to gain points and you're trying to beat it to 80. I guarantee you, most players will not go at the same pace this solo mode does. This AI, is ridiculously quick. Bear in mind, we have to create links through our cards in order to get any degree of victory points. And only until later when you've got some level 2 cards, which are pretty much mandatory. I mean, if you don't get some of the level 2 cards, you are pretty much going to lose this game. You need those powerful cards. But here, they essentially get victory points, 3 victory points for a level 1 card, and 6 victory points for a level 2 card. So they very quickly spam points. And that just seems a little bit insane. Like, they spam points at such a quick rate. I mean, each ape of level 2 immediately scores 6 victory points. You have to spend quite a lot of, resources and time and get, like, the right combos to score that kind of victory points in a turn. And they get it from just flipping a single card. A single card. That's not if they happen to have more than one level 2 card at the time. Oh, I flipped over 2 level 2 cards. Well, then they get 12 victory points. It's insane. This thing needed to be dialed back a bit in difficulty, and I don't know, maybe I do need to get good, I don't know, but this just felt like, that the rules kind of work, but with the piloting and just the sheer frustration of how quick this is, it just feels unnecessarily punishing. And it's a shame, but then this game, I said that not every game needs a solo mode, but then because this game is pretty much entirely multiplayer solitaire, it kind of does warrant one, but I don't think this solo mode is the way to go. So overall, After Us for me has had some fun moments, but it's also a little bit of a disappointment for what the hype generation it was. Like everybody was trying to get a copy of this, and I think Mike DeLisio was like really bad. I think Mike DeLisio and Steve Gazier, when they did their anticipated games of the year, they were really gunning for this, and there was a lot of buzz generated. I didn't really know what I was going to get going in, and I liked the sound of the mechanic. And this mechanic with the 4 cards is cool. But this and the artwork is the best part of it. Everything else doesn't quite measure up to something that I would want. And it, as much as it's produced nicely, there's no theme whatsoever. The resources are generic, whatever they're called. The black bits, the orange bits, and whatever. The items that you get to use and around. You get to use these different items by spending batteries. You only get 3 of them in the game. There's not that many in the box, and they're fairly generic. Some of them are barely even used because they require so many batteries. But, I could potentially discard and draw a different card. You have no idea if that will be useful to you or not. But instead, I can spend 5 batteries to get 5 victory points. Yeah, I'm just going to spam all my batteries into that, thank you. It's way better than most of the other abilities. It just seems like there's some areas in here that don't quite gel with me. Now, I reckon some people will enjoy this game, and some people aren't going to be put off by the fact that the game drags on with 6 players. They'll just be glad that they can have a game that's relatively simple for 6 players, but the game does generate a lot of analysis paralysis, and it's not one that I would want to play with too many players because there just honestly isn't really much point. There's other games I think do better with more players that I would rather bring out that take about the same amount of time. This one I would have loved to bits if it just had a solo mode that really clicked with me, but sadly even that doesn't quite work with me. But it does look good, it is produced well, and I do really enjoy this 4-card thing. This is everything. Unfortunately, that on its own is not quite enough for me to get it to an endorsement level. I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. It's still above average. It's still a game that I can get some enjoyment out of it. But a few areas of it I think just need a little bit more tweaking. Certainly the solo mode needs some tweaking, some difficulty balancing. But also, it would have been nice for there to be more reason for me to care about the other players at the table, rather than I'm just playing this little solitaire puzzle and waiting for others to hurry up and take their turns. I know you might think, well, that's the group, it's not the game's fault, but the game leads itself to that, because this game does generate a lot of AP because of the nature of the beast, or the nature of the ape, I guess, in this case.
Oh God, you're killing me. Oh God, you're killing me.
It sounds like I'm being overly negative, but I think 6 out of 10 is still an above average game. It's still one that I think you should try. but for the hype and buzz that it generated, it just doesn't quite meet the mark for me. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please remember to thumb it up on here, but also thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. If you want to check out more content, then believe me, I've done enough reviews lately, so there's plenty for you to check out. But of course, let me know your comments down below. Have you played this game? Do you actually enjoy the solo mode? Do you think it's a good addition? Do you like playing this with way more players regardless? You know, have you had fun with it? I'd just like to know your comments. What are your thoughts on the game in general? Until next time though, remember, regardless of whether you want to be like you hoo hoo, it's still only a game. Bye for now.
Monkey!